PhDIP.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bold Inventors Show. I'm JD Houvener, your host, co-hosting today with Matt Kulseth. As always, Matt, so good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back, JD. How you been?
It's been really good, actually. Yeah, summer's been nice. The sun's been out. We got the pool on its way. It's here. It's in the backyard, so the kids are just ecstatic.
Nice.
We're now hooking it up with all the plumbing and electrical.
You got the sport court now. You got the pool. There's no reason to leave the house.
No reason, man. You should have seen that. I'll send you the video. They craned it in. They used a giant crane. I used my drone. I got some amazing video.
Yeah, so they put it over your house basically in your
backyard. Yeah, well, they did it. They swung it around. It was a big fiberglass pool, 35 foot by 16. Jeez. But pretty amazing, project. They had it shipped from the Midwest out of Indiana with 3 other pools. I won't say how much that cost, but it's an enormous fee for the shipping alone. And then the crane,
really expensive to rent a crane.
Expensive.
Really expensive. I know.
Through a buddy to get it lined up to make it happen. And they showed up and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
When the boom starts going,
it's the real deal. Yeah.
150 feet up, big. So they have a separate truck that does all the counterweights, and it's like, whoa, this whole process of putting the counterweights on, it was really impressive to see. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited for that. And you got back from Japan. Give us a brief update.
Yeah. So got back from a month-long trip to Japan. Had an incredible time with the family. We were in Tokyo, Kyoto, Hiroshima. Spent some time in the mountains outside Tokyo, kind of like the Buddhist monastery region. But yeah, we had a wonderful, wonderful time. Like so many different experiences. I will just say that, Japanese culture is way different than American culture. And I've never seen so many people, so so dense of, concentration, but so quiet and respectful to one another. It's a completely different culture. People they stay out of each other's way, like in public, so it's very easy and calm to get around those places. People do not stand out in Japan, right? That's kind of against their culture to stand out. So everyone kind of takes, finds their own business. It's a really interesting.
Yeah. Here in the U.S., we're bold, right?
We are super bold and independent and individuals. Yeah,
not as humble, certainly as we probably could be.
Totally different. And so we really enjoyed it. Very much a culture shock, but we adapted and had a lot of fun and had a lot of great experiences and food and got to see some really cool things. And the kids had a wonderful time. But happy to be home.
Yeah. Well,
it's a lot easier to work from, a supercomputer at your desk than a laptop. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to be home.
Good. We're happy to have you back. We've got a good show today. We've got a guest, Michael Holden, PhD, backstage. He's going to share with us what he's been doing with Fabrikagen. I'm probably going to mess up that word. Fabrikagen. I'll have him correct my pronunciation. But we'll do maybe just 2 questions that have come in over the past couple of weeks.
Great.
To just kind of warm things up. We have our lovely Mia out there scouring the Quora and Reddit forums. So, if you don't have a chance to pop onto our channel, those channels are hot and they've got constant questions. This question came in here. Let's see. Oh, we had a bunch.
John posting in Japanese. I have to translate that.
Well, here's this is a pretty simple. I like simple ones. Yeah, this is good. Hopefully, it'll tee us up. Oh, Japanese. Wow. Jonathan Mitchell. Okay. Oh, welcome back. Love it. So the question is, what happens if I don't reply to a trademark objection?
Yeah. So I guess my follow-up question would be, what kind of objection, like an office action from the USPTO examining attorney, or like an objection to, potentially an opposition to your application during the publication period, which occurs after the USPTO examining attorney approves the trademark.
Okay, so you get two.
you got to respond to both. Either one has to be responded to. No questions asked, right? So respond to both of those. If it's just an email from someone objecting to your trademark application, you are under no necessary requirement to respond to them unless they, formally object. But yeah,
Let's go with the form. So let's say it's a pending app, and the trademark examiner rejects, objects.
Yep.
And you don't respond. What happens if you don't respond?
Yeah, your trademark will go abandoned, essentially, right? So kind of the process at the USPTO is once we apply for the trademark, there's an examination period where an attorney at the USPTO, he or she will examine your trademark application, similar to what we do. And then they'll make a determination if the trademark can be published for third parties to review and potentially oppose, or there's a defectiveness in the trademark application that, they're going to issue an office action for us to respond to and potentially resolve.
Got it.
Both of which need to be responded to in a timely fashion. Office actions have their own time periods to respond to, and opposition have their own time periods to respond to as well.
And on the patent side, you can go through and request a revival of an abandoned or application. Is there something similar on the trademark side? Or is it really
there is. So you can file extensions to office action responses. If you miss the office action response and your trademark does go abandoned, generally speaking, there's some qualifications around, but generally speaking, you can petition to revive the application within 2 months of that of that cancellation date, that abandonment date.
So 2 months, that's not that long. I mean, if it's
there's a fee for it, but it can help inadvertently. I mean, it happens all the time to our clients where we'll be emailing for them to get back to us on proof of use, or we find an extension here, and they don't, right? And then, a couple of weeks later, they're like, hey, I saw my trademark abandoned. It's like, we need to file a petition to revive it now if you intend to keep it.
Sounds good. Let's see. Okay, let's go to the patent side. We got a question here. And again, if you're live, we have a couple live viewers. If you have any questions, put them into the comments block. We'll put you to the top of the list. Here we go. So if you patented and developed plans for a device that's not on the market and you didn't want to manufacture it yourself, would you sell the rights outright, or would you want a small percentage for perpetuity? That's a great question about making money. Depends on, of course, how much up front. I think it's sort of going to come down to economics and your risk tolerance. If you actually have a deal, if someone wants to purchase or license your invention, you've got to ask yourself, how much are you willing to take a risk on it? Or do you have plans to move spend the money, invest the money somewhere right now? Is the money worth more to you now, or are you okay with the trickle of money over time? Both of those, I should say, are rare. To actually get to the point where someone wants to pay money for your invention, you've done a lot of the right things. You have researched, you have filed a patent covering an important area of technology that not only is novel and not obvious, but has market demand. So those things shouldn't be kind of forgotten. I want to make sure I mention that. So if you truly have something where someone's offering you funds and money, I would just consider that an accounting question. Hey, is this something I'm okay receiving a certain amount over time? The other legal side, I would say, is that if you've perhaps downside of a perpetuity or longer term arrangement for royalties, is that now it's on you to enforce the contract. And so if, for some reason, that other party is not performing, you're going to have to maintain. You have to go enforce, inspect, and maybe yearly say, hey, are you shelving my product, or are you pushing it as per our agreement? And you'll have to kind of manage that relationship. So I think because of that, you should ask for more. In the end, you should, end up with more money over time if you're willing to kind of give up those rights and take a percentage versus a lump sum outright payment. You're going to probably pay a lot less because there's no maintenance. You're done once that deal goes through.
Right.
So
no, I think that's great. The times that I've seen clients not bring a product to market but patent something and have offers before the patent even registered have been cases where that individual inventor was already well ingrained in that field, right? And they knew there was a need, and they knew who the likely customers were for that product, right? And so They might be a subject matter expert. They create this thing and then take an NDA basically and shop it around to a third party. And that's how you can, sell these things before they even hit the market, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that is rare in and of itself.
It is rare. They have that kind of subject matter expertise.
Yeah. The more traditional route is clients go through the burden of actually making it and selling it, having commercial success, and then bigger, larger companies, entities want to say, hey, I could do that at a bigger scale, right? And they get to play shark. So that's the more typical route. Matt, let's bring our guest on. We got
sounds good.
20 minutes. Michael Holden, welcome to the Bold Inventors Show.
Hello, thank you.
Hey, appreciate you taking time. So Michael, you have got a company that I probably butchered the name of. Would you introduce us to your company and maybe give us a little background on kind of what led you to starting up this, I think it's an AI-based pharmaceutical company? If I got that right?
Yep. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The intro was, I think, particularly relevant to some parts of my story, and we can touch on some of that later. My name is Michael Holden, PhD. I finished my PhD in 2018, studying protein folding and misfolding as applied to Alzheimer's disease. And then I spent some time in various industrial roles as a scientist and as a group leader, and eventually as the head of chemistry at an oncology company. This company kind of had a reduction in force at the end of last year, and I found myself at a crossroads thinking, do I want to move my family again? We have moved from Colorado, where I currently live and where I grew up, to California and to New York. And was I prepared to drag my wife and 3 kids to Jersey or to Boston or to, wherever the next job was? And I thought, I'm going to try to, I told my wife,
Minneapolis, probably, if you're,
Yeah. So there's a few little spots around the country where these jobs exist, but generally there's fewer in the Mountain West. And so I told my wife, I'm going to try to consult for a few months. We'll see that we can pay the bills. If that works out, we'll reassess the situation. And if in a few months I haven't generated any revenues, then I'll just suck it up and go get a job. And after consulting for 3 or 4 months for various companies, I had been using X quite a bit, seeing this wind down come closer and closer. And some of that social media presence actually provided me with warm inbound that turned into paid customers. Through that process, I learned a lot. And then I started a C Corp on the back of the learnings from my LLC called Fabrikagen. You were pretty close the first time. Okay. My wife has told me it's a terrible name and nobody's ever going to be able to pronounce it. And I'm like, well, babe, it's incorporated. So here we are. So some of those learnings led me to develop new protein language models, which is an area that's pretty popular and hot right now, as well as this idea of closing the loop. A lot of AI companies are really good at AI, but they don't have much lab. And then a lot of lab companies are really good at that part, but they don't have the other component. And the company that I'm building right now is a marrying of these two worlds on the backs of my own experience that I've sort of developed over the last few years.
Cool. Well, let's get to a kind of a, assuming I know nothing about proteins other than, like, if I'm going to go do a workout, I'm going to go hit some whey protein. Are we talking about those kind of like protein? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so protein is anything that's basically a linear chain of what are called amino acids. And everybody's body has 20 different amino acids that are naturally occurring. Some of them you have to eat. Those are essential amino acids. And some of them are unessential because your body can make them on its own. And so all proteins in your body, that's the ones in your muscle, in your brain, in your eyes, everywhere, in other organisms. The whole world basically uses this 20 amino acid language. And when you string them together in solution, they tend to compact and fold into a structure. This is true of whey protein isolate and most other proteins as well. And it's that folded protein that makes it active. So I got interested in proteins as opposed to some other version of chemistry when I was studying, because proteins are truly the structure of the cell. Cells are kind of made of this fat bag. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's just called a lipid bilayer. And this fat bag holds all your cell together. But the part that makes it interesting, structured, or have protrusions or have action is really all the proteins work. So they're the structure and the function of the cell. And that's where sort of my deep passion for studying proteins began.
Oh, that's awesome. Give us an example maybe of an application of the work that you've done? Maybe if you can name names of products or maybe similar type of products, solutions that are out there that have used the knowledge that you've kind of worked toward.
Yeah, so in the last, I would say, 3 years, this topic it's always been sort of bubbling under the surface as AI for proteins or AI for DNA, and but it really became much more accessible and well developed over the last few years. There's tools that people in the field that I'm in would recognize called Pulse Gen or RF diffusion, and there was a Nobel Prize awarded in chemistry for AI for protein design to a gentleman named David Baker and some other people. And his work at the University of Washington was sort of instrumental in kicking this field into overdrive. Then the Nobel Prize was awarded, and now people are really paying much closer attention to this. And so this can be used in sort of any. There's basically proteins in everything. There's proteins in cosmetics. You've heard of collagen. That's a protein.
Yes.
There's proteins in food. So there's protein engineering. Microbial transglutaminase it's called meat glue. It's an enzyme that people put into hot dogs and other products to sort of gelatinize the protein. There's industrial applications basically across every sector: ag, biotech, pharmaceuticals, even what they're calling biomining, where you generate a protein that can pull out a specific metal, and then you can basically dissolve rock and extract gold or platinum or whatever you're interested in.
So and go UW, by the way, go University of Washington. I'm a UW alum. Know zero about proteins, obviously, but so is it the synthetic? Is it human-made proteins? Is that what we're talking about here? So non-organic?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can trick an E. coli or a cell to make a protein that contains the sequence of a human or a llama or a dog or whatever you're interested in. Because of the genome sequencing that's happened over the last couple of decades, we know exactly what makes up these proteins. And so all the proteins that I've historically worked with are human proteins. They're just not always made in a human cell. And at the end of the day, you usually have a very high quality surrogate for the molecule that's actually in the cell, and you can perform tests and analyses and things like that.
Insanely complicated.
I've been pacing down this road for 20 years, so it's an accumulation of wealth.
Like, how do you do an elevator pitch? I mean, like, seriously, you got like 30 seconds to tell me like what you do. I mean, what do you tell people? What do you tell someone who just knows nothing about, catch them up to speed? 30 seconds. What is it that you offer through Fabrikagen? No one else offers.
Yeah. So first of all, we have this closed lab loop. So we have these proprietary protein models plus this proprietary assay that allows us to take these data and train the model again. This whole thing can happen in a week. So this is pretty novel. It's very fast for the field. Most companies take 4 to 6 weeks to turn this whole thing over. So that's sort of the super fast pitch for somebody who knows what I'm talking about. The 30-second pitch is the best-selling drugs of all time are antibodies. This is true for veterinary and for human medicine. And so those antibody drugs typically take 3 to 5 years to discover and another 5 to 15 years to commercialize. And by the time that has happened, through manufacturing and distribution and clinical trials and all the other regulatory affairs that one must go through, it takes so long to get there that there's a huge interest right now in speeding up the acquisition of these initial designs. So instead of injecting a mouse with a protein to make an antibody against it and then waiting 7 or 12 or 15 weeks to harvest that mouse and get those antibodies, you can instead do this on your computer in 3 hours, and by tomorrow you can have an antibody made. And then we can test it tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's much faster.
Like you're creating a virtual mouse. You found a way to accelerate the testing, simulate the testing, if you will, quicker.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. So this typical technology is called hybridoma, where you inject a mouse or something and then you perform this hybridoma process. It takes a long time. You have to kill the mouse, and it's very expensive to grow these mice and to have them and all that. To be able to do this, what's called in silico on a computer chip, basically hybridoma technology, where we make real natural antibodies that have real orthologs out in biology, but are unique sequences of their own, is a rapid advancement in the way that we can design and test these molecules, and it takes out a lot of this sort of inhumane aspect.
Right. So let's talk about certifications and the old maybe red tape of the FDA. Have they acknowledged, do they accept this non-animal version? Is that an acceptable?
It's a good question. So you probably would be able to figure out a better answer than I would, but I think a lot of these things are still being developed. There are currently companies which are focused on generating drugs using AI. There's a few that are kind of quote unquote famous and getting bigger and raising huge amounts of money. And so the question really will be, are they speeding up timelines, and are their drugs better than the drugs that you get out of the classical pathways? And I think in some ways the answer is yes, and in some ways we have some room to grow.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got a few more questions, but Matt, I want to give you a shot if you had anything on your mind you wanted to blast away with.
Yeah, so I guess Michael, tell us in your field, what are the big things that are coming down the road with AI? I mean, in terms of your experience, and what are the big things that you're excited about in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think a big part of this is going to come down to clinical trial design, patient selection, organizing and recruiting, and keeping patients onboarded. There's a huge opportunity right now to apply AI to a lot of these parts of what I would call the rate limiting steps, the slowest parts of the approval process. And people are starting companies to do this, but I think it's very early for that, whereas sort of on the more lab related side, there's a lot more competition.
Sure.
And somewhat related to that, is it true that the United States is not necessarily at the forefront of innovation? Are there other countries that are more accepting to alternative medicines that you're pursuing or interested in pursuing?
I would say that the United States is always trying to lead the forefront of science and technology, although the funding may be questionable and there are challenges abound in the field. The research that comes out of the United States is top notch. Our universities are competitive with the Chinese universities and the Japanese universities, the EU, et cetera. Where we can, improve our standing is sort of the timeliness. It's been observed that, for example, the Chinese scientists can crank out something very, very quickly, and they can do it in broad scope, in broad depth. And so this allows them to, quote unquote, catch up very quickly. And so pharmaceutical companies right now are struggling with this wave of Chinese biologics that are coming onto the market. And do they buy them? Do they compete with them? And so that is currently evolving. The Chinese have done a really good job at sort of catching up in this regard in biologics, but still a lot of the new inventions, technologies, and patents are coming out of the West still. And so it's a matter of time before other competitors show up. And are we going to keep this dominance?
Yeah. Speaking of patents, we're Bold Patents after all. Let's talk about that a bit, and your experience with filing patents in the past in this area, and then what's sort of your current filing looking like? Are you planning to file? Do you have any hesitations? How are you approaching the future for filing patents?
Yeah, so I'm excited about the patents that I've been working on. We are going to submit for provisional probably this week or next week.
Nice.
It's sort of a big patent that will probably get split up into some smaller claimed patents later, and that's fine. The process has been pretty good. I had to come up with this idea, and I researched competitive technologies, and when I realized that truly this seems like there's not much else out there, and I want to talk to people about this, the way that I could secure that is by at least getting a priority date. And so that's part of the, you had mentioned earlier, getting, potential clients under NDA and talking about technologies that you have invented or about to invent, and then selling or pre-selling those workflows or whatever. And that's sort of what I've had to do. So I built these models and have a couple of unnamed currently, but very interested pharmaceutical companies that they're under NDA, and we're scoping out a license deal, and that will help me to build out the lab side. And so building out the software side enabled some patents there and patent on the lab side as well. And then we'll finish flushing that all out and submit the full patent. Pretty excited about it.
So Matt, he's one of the rare ones that has the connections, and that is likely how you'll end up getting a deal done, is because you've kind of
the folks.
You know who would buy it. You know the potential users.
I mean, I would buy this if I was still at Regeneron and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, man, we want to sell you this box. It costs this number." The numbers are kind of outrageous, but the CapEx budgets at these companies are huge. And to have an opportunity to access a new technology that doesn't exist anywhere else is a competitive edge. And a lot of companies, again, given that I have this inside knowledge, I've been at pharmaceutical companies wishing that something was faster, would exist like this, that somebody would come and sell me this type of thing. I thought it just seemed pertinent that I just turn the table, invent it, and then start reaching through my Rolodex.
Now, are you, Mike? Are you drafting that provisional on your own and submitting that by yourself?
Fellas, sorry to interrupt. I got to jump here to the next client call. But
right,
Michael, it was wonderful
problem.
meeting you, and JD. I'm looking forward to catching up with you a little bit later this week.
Yeah, see you, Matt.
Good to meet you, Matt.
Likewise.
No, I put together a series of what I thought were important details and some background, and then I worked with Bold actually to produce the draft. And the person I'm working with is very knowledgeable and has been a great resource and assuaged some probably naive concerns that I had. And so, I mean, the whole process, it's taken a little time, partly on my side, partly just because that's the way the work is. But it's been really, really interesting to see. I've always wanted to sort of invent something and file a patent, and then to actually go through it, it's been really rewarding.
Fantastic. Good. I mean, it's even for simpler inventions, I like to stress that it's important to let the professionals do their job, even if you don't end up working with Bold. Working with a patent attorney, that someone who's dedicated their career to this, it's important to do. I'm glad you've taken us up on that and trusted us with the responsibility to get it filed the right way. And for those that don't know, real quickly, I'll say a provisional does indeed lock in that priority date, which is important, and you'll be the first to file. But it does require a follow-on utility non-provisional application within 1 year. So sounds like you're going to be using that 1 year wisely and getting things started, discussing it, starting to share the concepts, get it published, perhaps, maybe even sold, and that way it'll make it more valuable. You'll have some iterations, perhaps some learnings and versioning to make the final application better.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, just the last couple minutes here, I like to always ask, Michael, if anyone listening afterward or now has questions, maybe wants to ask you a few things on the side, if they've got their own invention, are you open to sharing your email address?
Yeah. I mean, people can always find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty active there. I have an X account, and my email is michael@fabrikagen.ai. Happy to spell it.
Perfect. I've got it. Let's double check, make sure I got it right. I do have a live question here. One of our longtime listeners, Jonathan Mitchell, he's asking if you can figure out how to heal the ACE2 receptors from mRNA spike protein VAX damage, you could save millions of lives and win the Nobel Peace Prize. 75% of the world needs it. That's over my head. Are you able to, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I've done a little ACE2 receptor work in my past. And thank you for the question.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're on your way to solving really big problems like that. Excellent. Well, Michael, thanks for being with us. Thanks for sharing your time and your story with us. We'll hopefully have you back on when we maybe got some good news that you can publicly share in the next year or so.
Sounds good, JD. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Go big, go bold.
That's right.
Go big, go bold at boldip.com.